Hello and welcome to the CBB edition of the Super Show. I'm your host, Walter Waddell, aka Deuces85, flying solo tonight to cover the two-game slate for tomorrow, rehash some of the matchups that we've seen go on today. We're currently watching this Miami-Iowa State game in the last 5 minutes. Need Miami minus 2.5 to survive. We've already cashed yesterday the Houston money line. Also, the Friars covered 7.5, so we got there with our top two bets from the betting show yesterday, and just need Miami to close here. So, really interesting. Big old crazy tournament that we've had so far, huh? Just insane to see St. Peter's as a 15 seed make the Elite Eight. I dare say, and unfortunately I hate to admit it, that Duke is probably lining up here for a big Final Four run. I really don't want to see Duke win, obviously. Would love to see St. Peter's pull this out, but man, a North Carolina versus Duke Final Four seems almost inevitable, but every time we count out these St. Peter's boys, they get it done, and we thought they might, So I do want to rehash these couple of games before I get in. If you see me looking off screen a little bit, it's because I'm watching this Miami game as I'm going on air. But St. Peter's with a 67-64 win over Purdue. Zach Edey was horrible. Man, he was horrible. 11 points, 2 rebounds only somehow, 5 turnovers and a block. Kept getting called for, 3 in the key. That was the big one for him, 3 in the key. Jaden Ivey, they locked him up. Mr. Ivey, the typical stud that he is, he had 9 points, 8 rebounds, 6 turnovers to only 2 dimes. That St. Peter's defense just really got under his skin. Mason Gillis actually was one of the better plays of the day. And then, of course, Trevion Williams, who probably should have been playing 35 minutes to have any chance of them winning this game, had 16, 8, and 2. With a block shot in 24 minutes of action. Matt Painter got out-coached. He got outworked. He didn't make any switches, no adjustments, nothing at all. He just thought that their talent would win out. It didn't happen. One of the worst coaching jobs you'll see. Like that was in the wall of shame with numerous Rick Barnes, coaching jobs. So Matt Painter, back-to-back years getting beaten by a double-digit seed. Not saying he should be fired or anything like that, but my Lord, he needs to start making some adjustments or get an assistant coach that knows what the hell is going on, because that was a really pitiful performance. I had some of my last futures I had available were on Purdue, so I obviously, had money riding on them from earlier in the season, like back in November I made those. But at the end of the day, I kind of wanted to sacrifice those. It wasn't like they were hundreds and hundreds of dollars, like a $50 future, a 33, I think, and a 12. At the end of the day, I want to see St. Peter's go to the Elite Eight, and I'd love to see them, match up with the Heels now. That's going to be a really interesting matchup. And Defo, 2 of the 3 games now, he's been useless. He's been in foul trouble. And St. Peter's has found a way to get it done against 2 of the bigger and stronger front courts in Kentucky and Purdue without Ndefo. Banks, Edert continue to do their thing. Was really impressed with Rupert today. Man, he hadn't been really starting games in the regular season. I'm talking about Clarence Rupert, but he's been starting in the tournament, and he really looked good. Had 11 points, 3 rebounds, 2 blocks, 3 steals. Just that fire defense that they run under Shaw Holloway. So really impressed by him. The poised play of their guards. Matthew Lee didn't have a ton of stats, but he was just very poised when he was running the offense and playing good defense. The Drame brothers did well. It's just a really strong performance. So I'm happy for them, and I hope they keep going. It would be really nuts to see a 15 in the Final Four. I don't think we're going to, because I think this Duke versus North Carolina narrative is going to be really, really being pushed hard. Never have I rooted for, I was just talking to my friend Corey. He said the same thing. Never have I rooted for a team more than I will for Arkansas tomorrow, outside of my hometown team, Washington, right? So I'm really going to be pulling for Arkansas to send Coach K off, into the sunset without a title. Providence, Kansas. We got the cover from Providence. And I don't know. I said it yesterday on the show that Kansas, even though they continue to win games, they're surviving, and that's what you do in March. They just look damn atrocious. Their offense was really horrific in that first half. It just happened that their defense was playing at an elite level, and the Friars couldn't get anything going. And then once in the second half, the Friars started getting some buckets, making some shots. You saw Kansas was on their heels, and they weren't getting any shots off. And I go back to Ochai Agbaji, who continues to play really, really mediocre or below average. He had 4 blocks and 2 steals early in the game, and it looked like, okay, he's gonna affect the game in other ways, and that'll get his scoring going. He only had 5 points on 2 of 8 shooting. He missed all 4 of his threes. He had 4 rebounds, no assists. Just really, I don't know what's going on. I mean, they're being hard carried by Remy Martin, who's playing, the best basketball of his career, even better than he looked at Arizona State. Another 23 tonight for Remy. Got to give it to him. He's playing really, really well. You got to keep rolling him out there. But if Remy wasn't healthy or he wasn't playing like that Kansas would have gone home 2 rounds ago, honestly. And it's crazy to see. But Jalen Wilson had 16 and 11. Good for on him. Christian Brown had 10 rebounds. Didn't do a whole lot else other than that. McCormick was his typical, Fowler self. Horkler didn't play too well, had 10 points, 8 rebounds. Reeves was 2 for 10. Durham playing really well, 21, 7, and 4. Durham, I had a couple shares there, was happy with that. Durham really kind of the last 3 or 4 games looked like the best player on the team. Minaya, he did his best for defensive purposes. He wasn't going to be doing much else. He did clamp Agbaji, didn't clamp Remy. And then anyone else on Providence, Croswell 9 and 6, pretty decent value there. And Jared Bynum only played 18 minutes. That kind of 4 or 5 game stretch of Jared Bynum where he was going nuclear, I guess it was just a fluke. He went back to his normal self. The UCLA North Carolina game, I am so happy for Caleb Love because even their own fans of the Tar Heels were just trash talking Caleb Love, saying they wanted a transfer, that he's not a real Tar Heel. And here he is leading the team to victory, scoring 30 real points. He took 24 shots to get there, but he made 11, hit 6 of 13 threes. You'll take that all day, played every single minute. Caleb Love, I'm super happy for him. And if it's him that ends up having to beat Duke and knock them off, then I'm happy about it. Brady Manick had a really nice first half. Second half, he fell off. Armando Bacot just keeps rolling. He's just the Energizer Bunny, 14 points, 15 rebounds. He totally dominated Cody Riley and Miles Johnson. It wasn't even a test for him. RJ Davis played well. Leaky Black was a solid defense, not a lot of peripherals. And the bench, they didn't really play. They played Puff Johnson 11 minutes, Dontrell 5 minutes. So they're running their starters into the ground as long as they can, and Hubert Davis is going to ride his studs. I did think that Jules Bernard played a really good game. Tiger Campbell looked really good, how I thought he would, 15.6 assists. He's taking more shots. He had 9 again today, 6 for 9. He's affecting the game more. Hawkes took 18 shots, clearly still affected by the injury. He shot 5 for 18. Tough for him. As I said, Cody Riley, really not that much of a factor. Neither was Miles Johnson. They just got outplayed there at the end. So kudos to North Carolina. And we're looking at our boys here. My man Jordan Miller, 14 and 7. We got 2.5 minutes for him to pull a double-double out for us, but it's starting to look like Miami's pulling away. And I did say, if Miami scores over 60 points, it's pretty much going to be a wrap because I don't believe that Iowa State's going to have the offense to keep up. You see, defensively, Miami's done a hell of a job tonight. They've kept Brockington under double digits. He has just 9 points. Gabe Kalsher has 13 on 14 attempts. Tyrese Hunter, who has affected the game, really, 3 steals, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, 10 assists, or 10 points. He's really been looking quite well. I think Hunter's going to be a big-time star and playing the NBA. I just hope he doesn't leave after this year. But Iowa State just didn't have enough. It does look like they're going to fall out here. They're down 11. George Condon and Jones have provided some good value. Those are 2 guys we kind of highlighted as throw-ins there. But at the end of the day, I think Miami's just, their guard plays too strong. McGusty, has done well. Charlie Moore's dropping a million dimes. Isaiah Wong has affected everything on defense. And they even got some quality minutes out of their bench tonight. Bensley Joseph, really good. In the 5 minutes he played, he was blocking shots, getting steals. And Walker, in the 10 minutes he played, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block. Really wish they'd play him more, but Larinagas just isn't doing it with him, but he looked really good. So we'll monitor that game throughout with the next 2 minutes and see what happens here. If anybody is watching live, go ahead and smash that like button for me. If you're watching on demand, do the same. Ask your questions in the comment section. I will answer those as we go. There's just 2 games, so it's really not a whole lot to go through. I will also talk about, the other Sunday's Elite 8 matchups, even though obviously I won't have pricing. I'll kind of give my thoughts there, and we'll kind of go from there. 2-game slate where the season's ending, man. The season's ending. It's really dawning on me that we're out and we're on to these 2-game slates now. which makes me really sad. So we do have some NIT action, the NIT final, which is when is that? The semifinal. So the 29th. So in after Sunday, we'll have a 2-game NIT slate, and then probably an NIT showdown slate. So there'll still be a little bit of basketball, but it's basically over after this weekend, besides showdowns and 2-game slates. All right. So we have a little bit of a reprieve. We get to wake up. We get to chill, sleep in a little bit. We're not going to have early games. Start at, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Houston versus Villanova. This is going to be a really intriguing game. Oh, yeah, let's go, Miami. Big dunk for our guy, Jordan Miller, on the alley-oop from Isaiah Wong. I love Jordan Miller, man. I don't know why people don't roster him. He's just so good. Anyways, let me pull up some odds here, see what we're dealing with. I think with Colin Gillespie, the injuries being downplayed quite a bit. He did hurt himself in yesterday's game, bent his leg backwards. We'll have to see, just how limited he is. He's played through a lot of injuries throughout the season, so obviously he's likely going to play. I'm not too worried about that. But there's obviously going to be, kind of a tough thing to ask of him to go against Houston, a team that really has been able to shut down opposing teams' perimeter all season long. We do have Houston -2.5, an over-under of 128. A lower scoring game, but we're looking at a 2-game slate. It's not as if we have, the opportunity to really fade a game here. Houston's tempo ranking is 338. Their offense is 8th in efficiency. Defense is 10th. Just love this Houston team. Villanova 345th in tempo ranking, 9th in offensive efficiency, 26th in defensive. So we're dealing with a situation here with Houston where I think, defensively, both of these teams you don't want to target against, but we don't have the choice. I guess suppose you could run 7 from Arkansas, Duke, and 1 from this game. But I think for me, I'm just going to continue to roll out multiple Houston guys, which I've been doing throughout the tournament. The rotation is nice and shallow with these injuries. Taze Moore continues to be my favorite player on their team just because he can affect the game in so many ways. He did bust last game. I know that because of his foul trouble. He only played 17 minutes. That will likely keep his ownership down, on a 2-game slate. Getting anyone under 30% that has a possibility of putting up 30 plus is a really strong leverage type of play. And I think Moore will go overlooked for that reason. I also really like Jamal Shed. He's going to play every single minute he can. He has taken double-digit shots in back-to-back games. He's not just dropping dimes, and watching everybody else shoot. He's had to take a more active role in the offense, and he's getting to the foul line at a tremendous rate. So if this game stays close throughout the end, he will rack up a ton of points there in the second half, especially at the line. Fabian White's clearly dealing with those back, flare-ups. He has been under 20 fantasy points in back-to-back games, and even against UAB in their first-round spot, he had 24. 6'3" is a really cheap price for him. I definitely want to have some exposure, especially going up against that Villanova front court that is susceptible to giving up big rebounding games. If you're not comfortable with him, you can drop down to Josh Carlton at 5'3", which is a really cheap price, but we know Carlton has a very high foul rate type of kid that, could obviously play only 18 minutes, or he could play 30 if he can stay on the floor. But the last 2 games, he's had 3 and 4 fouls. It seems almost inevitable. Although the Villanova front court isn't, like I said, very strong, he could end up staying on the floor for a long time. Now, this is where we're going to have to get tricky because value is going to be hard to come by on a 2-game slate. So I am looking to the Houston guys. If you want to play the narrative that, yes, White is not going to play over 25 minutes because of that back. Carlton's going to get into foul trouble. So you want to look at Reggie Chaney at 3-4 or Juwan Roberts at 3-3 because they're going to be the main benefactors of any injuries, flare-ups, fouls, anything like that. Roberts does have an extremely high rebounding rate, pretty high fantasy point per minute player as well. So if he gets anywhere close to 20 minutes, he could certainly shatter. Looking at it, his rebounding rate is 14.5% offensive, 20.3% defensive. So extremely strong on the glass. He's got a 3% block rate, almost 2.5% steal rate. Definitely somebody I'm looking at. I also like Ramon Walker, Stoneman at 3K. You saw, with the foul trouble to Taze yesterday, he played 27 minutes. He was over 4X. We're basically looking at, him getting about that 11 to 13 fantasy points at 3K and getting 25 minutes. So we're going to have to take that. It does look like Miami's closing. So 3 for 3 on the Giles show yesterday. Houston, Providence, and Miami all getting the job done. Miami advancing on after my guy, Jordan Miller, with a key block with the last 20 seconds, 16-7, two blocks and a steal. Let's freaking go, Jordan Miller. Congrats to Miami. All right. So yeah, if you're looking for that value, like I said, I think Houston's the best way to do that. Playing probably two at top from the group of Shed, Moore, and maybe even Kyler Edwards, and then one of those value guys between Roberts, Chaney, and Walker. I am leaning Walker just because of the 3K and he's going to play the minutes, but I think Roberts has more of the upside that you need for those big, large field GPPs, and he's obviously going to be a higher FPPM player than somebody like Ramon Walker, who's capable of standing on the floor for 20 minutes and putting up just 2 fantasy points. All right. Let me just pull this up. So on the Villanova side, we are looking at prices very low. It's the first time in quite some time where I haven't had to say my spiel about Villanova players where they're priced appropriately. I do think Gillespie at 6'9" is pretty fadeable just because we don't know the extent of that injury, but we can easily look towards Justin Moore at 6K, who we know is going to jack up a ton of shots. Jermaine Samuels at 6'2", who has seemingly been unleashed recently. The last 3 or 4 games of the tournament here, he's just been completely unleashed, and they're playing in bigger minutes. He's putting up 30+ fantasy points with regularity, and I definitely think that he's a guy that is going to be able to do some damage here if he can stay on the floor, and that means in terms of fouls. That Houston front court is no joke, though, and I don't want to get baited to play Jermaine Samuels now that he's playing well and have him blow up in our faces. Now that I'm doing the MME thing, however, I'm a little more comfortable getting that exposure. Eric Dixon at 5'1", he's going to have his hands very, very full trying to deal with this Houston front court. I think he's going to probably see quite a bit of ownership. I'm happy to fade Eric Dixon because I just don't see him making value even at 5'1". I see him fouling a lot. And then if Gillespie's, weakened at all, Caleb Daniels, his price is up to 5'6", which is tough, but we know with him taking a bunch of shots, he's able to pay that price off on volume alone. And then you have Brandon Slater down there at 4'5", who is kind of just a guy, a non-con hero. Not really liking him too much, but 4'5" value is just kind of hard to come by, so you might have to use him. Moving on to Arkansas versus Duke. This is the game where we really need Arkansas to win. +4, the over-under of 147.5. I definitely like taking Arkansas +4. I mean, how could we bet against them after what they just did against Gonzaga with the way their defense is playing and the way that their offense is able to get things done in multiple fashion, and from JD Note to Trey Wade, Adis Toney, Devo Davis. I mean, they have a lot of weapons. They're none of which are consistent, but when one of those guys falls off, the next man is picking up, and that's really where I'm at with them. I think they have a chance to win this game for sure. Looking at tempo rankings, we know the Must Bus likes to play at a fast pace. They're 28th in tempo ranking, 11th in defensive efficiency, 53rd in offense. And then Duke, 167 tempo ranking. Offense is 2nd in the nation, right behind Purdue, bye-bye, and then 46th in defensive efficiency. For Arkansas, prices, Jalen Williams at 7.2, that's going to be far too cheap. We have harped on it all season long, going up against Duke, even with the Lafayettes and, the Citadels and all these lower-end teams. We've been able to target against them for fantasy purposes pretty much every game. And now you're talking about a team like Arkansas that has a pretty, solid rotation that you can predict quite easily. They're going to put up a lot of fantasy points, and that starts with Jalen Williams and JD Note, who are both really underpriced here at 7.6 and 7.2. Jalen, if he can stay on the floor, one thing I do worry about for Duke is that they're going to get a Duke whistle, meaning that they're going to call a lot of bad fouls and charges and whatever. But we saw Arkansas get a pretty favorable whistle yesterday, so be the battle of favorable whistles, I guess. On the Arkansas side, Jalen Williams, I'm always favoring him over Note just because, he has that 29% defensive rebounding rate, which is top 15 in the country, 4.1% block rate, playing a lot more minutes now. His usage is only about 19%, but he affects the game in so many other ways. He typically is going to make value at that low price of below 7.5. JD Note has a shot rate of 33%, a usage rate over 30%, assist rate over 24.5%, and a steal rate of 4%, drawing 5 fouls per 40. He took a ton of shots yesterday, tied for 4th most in the tournament history for a winning team since the 3-point era, which is like 87, 86, 19, somewhere in there. But yeah, 29 shots is tough. He only made 2 of his 12 threes, 7 of his 17 doubles, but it was enough. And clearly he's going to be their go-to guy throughout, and they're going to be able to do some, serious damage on the back of him if he's able to hit clutch shots against this Duke squad. Obviously, we're looking at supreme value with Taze Moore at 4.8. I think you got to play him. He's going to play the entire game mostly. Anyone under 5K on a 2-game slate is just, something I can't get a hold of. Or get away from. There's no leverage there for me at that price or anything that I see a good reason to fade. Stanley Amude at 6.1 will obviously get a lot of ownership. He's been in foul trouble, though, against Gonzaga. You see the last 3 games he's had 4 fouls, but it didn't affect him because against New Mexico State and Vermont, he didn't get those 2 early ones, and he still played a lot of minutes. Musbus does bench guys when they get 2 early fouls. That's his thing. He rarely plays guys with those 2 fouls. So the fact that Amude has 4 fouls and 3 straight, and actually 4 of his last 5 is obviously a little concerning for me. And if I am looking for leverage, that might be where I go to fade because I know he's going to be so highly owned. I might as well just go up and take Note and Jalen and down to Tony and call it good. Kind of same thing with Devo Davis at 4.4. He may end up being highly owned just because value is kind of lacking on the slate, but it seems like he's kind of getting back to his old form. I thought there's going to be a much bigger year for him. But at 4.4, if he can just give us about 16 to 17, even doesn't have to be 4X, I think just gives us double digits fantasy points. I think we'll be okay. Probably not trying anything with Chris Likes. Trey Wade did pop back up. 3-1. Trey Wade's going to probably be chased quite a bit, I would imagine. I don't know, man. I'm going to have some because I'm doing the MME thing, but, everybody jumps back on in single entry, high dollar cash games, and then all of a sudden he plays 8 minutes. So tread lightly with Trey Wade. I have definite concerns there, but at 3-1, we may not have a choice. And on the Duke side, Paolo Banchero, how can you not want to have exposure to him? He's had 40-plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 5, 34 in 4 of his last 5. He's only priced at 8.1, which makes very little sense. 40 against Texas Tech is supremely impressive. About 30 against Virginia Tech a couple of weeks ago. He's just been able to do it against really consistent and competitive defenses. And he's been a really strong source of fantasy points, hovering right around that 35 mark. And at 8.1, his normal average is putting him over value, and we know he has the upside for a little bit more. So I trust him more at 8.1 more than I do at Mark Williams at 7.7 or even Wendell Moore at 7K. Trevor Keels is not playing. It's hard to really use him. 5.5, he's probably going to get drafted, which kind of shows you how the NBA drafts on potential, and I get it, but he's not even playing right now. Can't use him in DFS. Roach has totally taken the reins from him and made him an afterthought. 3 straight games, Jeremy Roach has played 35 minutes or more in the tournament. He scored 23-plus fantasy points in each. You're going to have to keep rolling him out there at 5.4. And then GPP-wise, AJ Griffin, really solid option at 5.2. He's going to take the shot volume. He's going to take a bunch of threes. He looks to be healthy to me. There doesn't seem to be any issues there. So I'm definitely on board with using AJ Griffin. I think for me, it's up to Paulo if you want the Duke exposure or down to Roach Griffin. I'm not really feeling the Keels, Moore, Mark Williams trio myself. And of course, nobody on the Duke bench is really worth using. Theo John, Joey Baker, they don't get enough minutes. So core-wise for the 2-game slate, it's tough. Jalen Williams, pretty obvious. Jamal Shed, I think I'm going to roll with Shed. I'm going to go ahead and dub Shed as the posh play of the day as well. You could probably share that award with Taze Moore. I think both of those guys go overlooked slightly, as much as one can be overlooked on a 2-game slate. And then the third member of the core, I think, for value-wise is just going to be Taze Moore at 4.8. I know it's pretty chalky, but this is where we're at. This is the time that we're at a really, short slate. Options are minimal. All right. So that wraps up the slate. Let me go into PrizePicks, see what we're working with here. And then as far as the bracket goes, so Sunday's games, just harp on it because I don't know if I'm going to have a show tomorrow, if I'm going to have time with stuff going on. I will certainly try. But St. Peter's versus North Carolina, that's just going to come down to, obviously, St. Peter's, their front court defense is not – it hasn't been the stronger suit of their defense. The perimeter wise, they're much stronger. So I could see Baycott having a 20 rebound game or something similar to what Oscar T did to them in the first round, 30 and 16. Maybe not 30 points, but I could see a really high rebounding game from Baycott. The guards I do worry about, the Caleb Love, RJ Davis. Like, I could see them struggling for sure. And then on St. Peter's side, man, Edert, Lee, the Drames, like, it's just going to be a total team effort. So they're cheap enough to keep speculating on. Rarely is any of them going to be a big-time slate breaker, but as long as they're, 4-2 to 5-5, they're going to be all usable options. Casey and Defo is just one that he fouls too much when he's priced over 6K. It's really hard to kind of use him. I do think the buck stops here and that North Carolina wins, though. But I would love to see St. Peter's continue to roll. It's a really fun team to watch. And then Kansas versus now Miami. Man, Kansas, I know they keep winning, but as I keep harping on it, they don't look good to me. If Remy Martin has an off shooting night, I don't know what they're going to do. And Charlie Moore might be all up in O'Shea Agbaji's ass defensively with a bunch of steals. I think Jordan Miller can hold his own against Jalen Wilson. That will be a fun matchup. And it's just going to come down to, David McCormick, staying out of foul trouble, and can he take advantage of this front court matchup against Miami? So to me, it's kind of a 50-50 proposition. We'll have to see what the line ends up being. I think Miami can cover, like a 5+ spread if they give us that. At the end of the day, I think as long as O'Shea does just enough and Remy keeps shooting lights out, they'll probably win. But if they don't, Miami can do this, man. This Miami team, which I never expected to make a tournament run, has really impressed me. And the guard play of their team has been phenomenal when you consider they're getting nothing out of the front court and they're running a pretty small lineup. Shout out to Sam Wardenberg, who defies logic and has good game after good game despite being very unathletic. All right, so PrizePicks. It's going to be a short and sweet one, so I appreciate you guys who are supporting the show. All right. They took away the points and blocks, which is probably good because I keep on striking out on that. Chet Holmgren and who was it tonight? Zach Edey not being able to cover 1.5. All right, so I am going to be on Jamal Shed. So his combo points, PRA, points, rebounds, assist is 20.5. I'm looking at a 5, 6, 7, 8 assists. He's been scoring roughly 12 to 15 points lately. That puts him right there, and then not even counting what rebounds he's going to get. So over 20.5 combo points for Jamal Shed. Lock it in. Let's get it. Fantasy points wise, I think Adi's Tony over 20.1 fantasy points is good here. A little tougher at that one, but I still think it's good. I like the AJ Griffin over 19.8 fantasy points because he should get pretty close to that, like 13 to 15 real points. And then, all he needs is get a couple of rebounds or a steal or something to get the rest. Looking at the real points for him, it's 10.5. So I like that as well. So over his fantasy points and over his single points of 10.5, definitely on board with that. I think JD Note over 18.5 single points. If they're going to win, he's going to have to score 20 plus against Duke. It's pretty clear at this point. And then Kyler Edwards over 14.5 single points. He's unconscious from 3 right now. He's playing with a lot of confidence. Transferring over from Texas Tech, he has looked way better than he ever looked for the Red Raiders. And I'm all about this Houston team right now. So I'm on over 14.5 single points for Kyler Edwards. Betting wise, Houston -2.5. Yep. And Arkansas +4. Definitely on both of those. I actually think the Houston game could go over that 128 as well. I know betting the over in Houston games hasn't really been a profitable move, but I think they'll be over that in this game. I think they'll have to show up and score a little bit more. There is one CIT, or as formerly known as the CIT tournaments now, the Basketball Classic game tomorrow around the same time as the Houston game. So if you want to be a DGen like me and bet that, Southern Utah is playing Portland. Southern Utah is -4, over under of 155. Southern Utah money line is -180. Parlay that with something or whatever, or you can just take it single. But Southern Utah is going to win that game straight up, and probably win that tournament. So just a freebie for you. And then as far as the rest of the content goes, like I said, I'm not sure I'm going to end up going live tomorrow like I originally thought. I will certainly try. It's going to be a busy day. Either way, there'll be an article out. I will post exposures. A lot of you guys seem to like that when I've been doing that lately with the just not even the tracker exposures, but posting the opto exposures. And then we'll have a Final Four show where we'll talk about those matchups, betting-wise, PrizePicks, DFS, maybe try to get Mike on or others and kind of wrap up the season, man. It's really a bittersweet moment. You know, we got the Final Four in one shining moment right down the hall, but I'm going to be sad to see college basketball go. Thanks, guys. Short, simple, quick show. Let's win all the money. First time I've ever been under 35 minutes, I think, in my life. So take care. See you guys later.